Woo! You are looking live at the Hidden Jackpot GovCast from South Florida. The end of the month, the end of the summer. Off we go. Woo! Happy Thursday, everybody. How are you doing? Great to see everybody. I don't know what happened on the intro. The producer team, I'm not sure. We're going to have to work on the little delay. I think we got some crossover. We're going to have...
It was good. It was good. I like the intro.
Demerits over there for the intro team. Welcome to the GovCast today. Happy, what are we, August 28th, 27th?
7th, Thursday.
4 days left in the month to get the goal, Dre.
You give me anxiety.
Are we going to get there?
Yes.
Say hi to everybody.
Hey, good to see everybody. You know, typical last week of the month, so a little stressed out, but here we are. It's going to be a good show.
Yes. Stevie B, the dean, the students, what are they doing on the block? What's happening out there on the quad? What are the students doing?
The students are excited right now. They're receiving bid notifications. So all GovSales University members are getting bids. So it gives them a lot of extra work to do. It's like extra homework. But
look at you cross-promoting. Look at you.
Instead of getting a grade, they can win millions of dollars. So they're happy about it.
Amen. Look at them. Look, cross-promoting the systems there. Don't let any marketing opportunity pass. Amen to you. Hey, this is our last show in August, and we, if you've been following us, we have been doing both back to school, right? A couple of shows early in the month, and then, hey, what happens after you get out of school and you hit the real world? And so many things, you know, through life, through 12, 16 years of life, we're told to go to school, we have classes and schedules, and we get graded. And then we get out in the real world, and all of a sudden we forget to keep learning. We don't realize there's real tests in the real world to determine where we're going in our future. And sometimes we don't prepare properly. And so we've tried to spend the last couple of weeks exposing you to folks that can help just build your career, get there, and both apply what you've learned in school and how to be great in life. So that's really what we focus on today. We're super blessed. We have Jeremy Weber here, and he's going to talk about building your personal brand. And it's so important. I love this topic. It's a great way to end the month because, especially during COVID, maybe before COVID, you thought, well, I don't need to be online. I don't need to have an online profile. I don't even care if my LinkedIn's update. Then COVID happens. We all go home. There's very little corporate infrastructure. And now your online persona, what's said about you, the number of followers you have, the ability for you to reach people remotely, promise you over the last 6 months during COVID, the folks that had a big network and could ping their network during the time, reach out to them, direct message them because they already had the connection, way better than you call in somebody's office and they don't answer all day. You're like, man, my sales not so great. So critical. I think a lot of folks have finally realized, man, I really need to make sure that my online persona and my ability to build a brand is really out there. It's both can be great for your current career, and if you want to have a little side hustle or maybe for your next job, it's so important. So that's what we're going to talk about in just a couple minutes. And so really important. So Dre, you said you had a story you wanted to share about a brand building incident you had?
Yeah, so I think something that we forget about, especially when we're interviewing for new opportunities, and even in your current role, everyone looks at your LinkedIn presence. Everyone looks at your social media presence in general. And so even if you're not super active on any of these platforms, what you had on there from 10 years ago is still going to be there. So I think it's just really important that we keep up with everything. But a funny story for me, so right out of college, I was interviewing for a recruiting position, and I was in the bathroom, touching up my makeup, a little nervous, and the director I'm about to interview with, I had looked her up on LinkedIn. So I recognized her and I'm like, let me just walk past her. I was a little nervous, and she looks at me. She's like, hey, Andrea, you're so-and-so. I've seen all these pictures of this occurrence and this incident, nothing bad. Right. But the point was that she stalked my Facebook and saw, and I just graduated college. And so anyways, I got the job. I worked there for a couple of years, but still it's a little bit unnerving because at that point, nobody really taught me, hey, make sure this is all great. So just really important to keep up with your every single platform. These people you're interviewing with can be looking at them.
Well, listen, such a great point. As the producer of the GovCast would tell you, when we started to interview folks for social media and folks that come to our company, literally, listen, if you're in your 20s and 30s and think, hey, my Instagram's mine or my Facebook's mine, it doesn't matter. Not true. Almost interview, as Andrea just said, they're going to go look you up. And we had folks that were trying to apply to our job. They had off the chart thing on their LinkedIn and their Instagram. And listen, your life is your life. Just know if you put it out for the public to see, the public can see it. And so sometimes we don't put out our best moments, and you may feel differently when you're 20 years old about that moment at 3 a.m. on a Saturday night than you would maybe a couple years later in your formal interview, all dressed up for the dream job you've always wanted. And they go, what's happening here? And you're like, You had that. Not only that, we had folks actually have some very, very aggressive, both political or maybe social statements that were, I would just say, very aggressive. And so they just come out. So just want to encourage folks to make sure that your online persona is cleaned up. Because again, we can change over time. Maybe when you felt good about it a couple of years ago. And again, when you always want to think about, you have your dream job. They have Google. They're going to type in your name. You should type in your name. And what comes up, right? Like what comes up with your name? Because in today's age, that's what everyone's going to do, especially now with COVID, where everyone's at home. They're going to type in, Stephen Bryan. Oh, he's a dean of a college. We should let him come in. DB, you have something to add? Did you go ahead?
Yeah, no, it's so good because I think, where's Lola? So I think that's really good is, Dre, you're talking about like when you're younger, right? When you get out of college and you're 20, like you don't have much experience, just your social life, right? So that is when Facebook and Instagram, but when you transition to there, like you should clear out a couple of those pictures, just putting that out there. But as you get into your 30s and 40s, it's about building from your experiences, right? Because you want to talk about your professional experiences when you build your brand. So I took that leap and I said, all right, I'm going to go out and buy my domain, right? Which is my name, right? You go out there, search it now. Piece of advice to everybody. If you're on a computer, just go to GoDaddy.com, type in your name and buy it. It's $10 for the year. You can't go wrong. It's your name, and that's going to be representing you for the rest of eternity. So get it before someone else with your name buys it. All right, one tip. But I went out and did that. And I had to even put like my middle initial in my name because my name was already taken. So I'm giving you that advice now. So hopefully you can get it in time. But then I put
is the Dean Bryant taken?
I don't know if that one's taken. I'll have to check that out. But the thing is, that's why I'm excited for Jeremy today, because I bought it and I put like, okay, I created my own, business, working with government and, all the advertising and marketing experience I had. And then as I had this page, I didn't know what to do with it. And I was paying, whatever, $100 a year for hosting it. And it was up and live. But I was like, I didn't really know how to maximize it. So I stopped paying for hosting. Still owe the domain name because I want to rebuild it. But that's what I'm trying to learn from Jeremy is like, once I had it, I didn't know what to do with it. So it's like, how do you capitalize once you have that brand or website out there in the public?
Yeah, that's great. Listen, we Jeffrey Gitomer said that many, many years ago. Go buy your name. It's the best $10. You'll have it forever. Sometimes, like you said, maybe you have a website up, maybe take it down, but you should own your name. We're in the digital age forever, and all your kids, your family, everything. Go buy all the URLs, and if you have to put in something like the Stephen Bryan, like go buy all those, and you have them forever. It's such a critical point. So great point. So it's a great segue. We want to bring in Jeremy Weber. He is the Director of Strategist and Partner Relations at the Brand Builders Group. So Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome, Jeremy.
Hey.
He is an expert.
Hey, guys.
Yes. He's an expert at building personal brands. And so why don't you tell folks what you do today and what Brand Builders Group does?
Yeah, great. Well, first off, thanks for having me, guys. This is awesome and very timely for sure for all the reasons you guys have already mentioned. But yeah, so Brand Builders Group, we're a personal brand strategy firm, right? We help individuals build and monetize their personal brand. And so that's something that really differentiates us in the market, right? There are tons of marketing agencies and, companies out there that are working with businesses, and you still need to brand and market a business, right? Yeah. But we come at everything through the angle or through the lens of the individual, right? Now, somebody would naturally say, well, okay, well, you don't work with businesses then. But that's not actually the case, right? We work, there's always a business behind the scenes, right? Even if you are a typical personal brand, like people would think an influencer, for example, or a speaker or author, right? Those are kind of these people that are, people probably associate that type of profession or that kind of business with, personal branding. Those are naturally a segment of our client base, but we work with businesses, but we would just do work through the context of elevating personal profiles within the context of the business, right? Working with the CEO, working with the leadership team, working with key salespeople, because at the end of the day, what I think everybody knows this saying is that people do business with who they know, who they trust, who they like, right? And so at the end of the day, a buyer, a consumer wants to understand the brand, the business in which they may be doing, a transaction with. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if they can get to know the individual that they may be working with or they may be kind of learning from as part of buying, that's going to help them make that decision quicker, right? And so anything we can do to still market the business, but at the same time, elevate the personal profiles of key individuals within the business, that's a good thing at the end of the day. It's going to help the corporation or the business differentiate themselves from competitors in the market. So it's interesting, we have clients that, span many different sectors, but everything we do is really through the lens of how do we kind of build your reputation as an individual and it be a positive reputation and increase your reach and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's the space we are in. Everything is kind of in that, from that angle of the personal brand. And my job specifically, I'm the director of partner and strategist relations. So I support all our personal brand strategists that are working with clients each and every day. And then we have an extensive partner network that really helps people with implementation activities. So strategy plus implementation. And then we have kind of our affiliate partners as well. So we don't have to get too deep into that. But yeah, that's the world we are in.
Yeah, and for our audience, I would just say, you hear a lot about brands, like corporate brands, whether you love McDonald's or Land Rover or Apple or Yeti. So really, this is talking about your personal brand. You personally, your brand, your name. You hear folks like Lewis Howes or Ed Milet or Gary Vee. Have you heard of those folks? Their personal brand actually creating and a business behind them, right? And so in full disclosure, actually, I'm a client of Brand Builders Group, love what they do, and they help folks kind of, hey, what is your message to the world? Right, Jeremy? And so can you share with the audience a little bit, like sometimes folks who like brands are just made up out of the blue, and I know you guys have a systematic model you walk folks through. So when somebody comes to you and says, hey, I'm interested in, as Stephen just said, I'm interested in kind of increasing my brand or, telling my story, can you walk folks through some of the models and some of the things that you take people through versus just saying, oh, let's just throw some Facebook ads or go throw up a website? There's really a model that you have, which is really amazing.
Yeah, for sure. So I think when we say we help people build and monetize their personal brand, it's like, oh, that sounds great. How do you do that? Right? Like, what is the process? What's the meat behind that? And so we really have a 4-phase process that we take clients through. So phase 1 is really around your positioning and branding. How do we position you in the market and get clear on a variety of different things before we actually start building the brand, right? If you don't have a good front end strategy on how to position yourself, what you're selling, how you're selling it, how you're talking about yourself, the problem you're solving, so on and so forth, then you don't have a solid foundation to build upon. So that's kind of phase 1. We get all this front end strategy locked in around positioning. Phase 2 is where we start kind of making things come alive and really starting to focus on marketing and driving brand awareness and increasing your reach and your followers and all that good stuff. Phase 3 is where we get into kind of optimizing or scaling things around the sales process and just tightening things up. And then phase 4, as you can see with that diagram, phase 4 is just naturally as you start scaling the business. And that's where your personal brand comes from. Just you as an individual to have a team of people that are supporting you and your brand and your business and all that good stuff. So that's the process, the 4-phase process that we take people through. But everybody starts in phase 1, and really there's a key framework that informs the work we do in phase 1, and it's called the Brand Dna Helix. We love our diagrams and our frameworks at Brand Builders Group, as Jack, you probably know. And so what's important for people to understand is that we're not in the business of copying other people, right? There's plenty of people that say, hey, this person's interesting. They seem to be successful. I'm just going to try to rip off their brand, right? So a critical thing to understand is that, we're not going to be just copying or running the same playbook as other people. We're going to do a lot of deep work at the front end in phase one to really identify your uniqueness, right? What is truly unique about you as an individual, and how do we exploit that in the service of other people, right? That's kind of a key principle. And we feel like that does a couple things. That helps you differentiate in the market, but it also grounds you in something that's more personal, right? So this is something that you believe in. It's at your core, kind of what you're about, and you're passionate about it. So this is the brand DNA Helix you guys are seeing, and there's kind of 6 questions that we work through. Could be, in a 2-day event, could be in a 2-day one-on-one strategy session, or through multiple calls. There's various ways it goes down. But those 6 questions are really kind of how we determine your uniqueness. And I'll kind of introduce it at a high level, then we can drill down into some of the specific things. But what we feel is that your uniqueness as an individual lies at the intersection of 2 key things. What the world needs you to be, which are those 3 questions at the top, and then what you were designed to be, which are those 3 questions at the bottom. And we want to balance those out. Is like, what is at the intersection of those 2 sets of information? Because that ensures that you're solving real problems for people that they're willing to pay for. That's important, right? That you can actually fund what you're trying to build here. But then you're also fueled by it. You love what you do, right? Because I think we all know a bunch of people that make a ton of money and they're miserable. And we know people that are living their best life, but they can't pay the bills, right? And so at the end of the day, we need to do deep strategy work to kind of find out what is at the intersection of those 2 things. And we do that through answering kind of each of those six questions. And so we can drive down deeper into some of those, but I'll pause there to kind of see if there's any feedback from you guys on that.
Yeah, I would love, can you bring the other one up, GovCast team, the closer one? Yeah, so for the audience, this is one of the things I think Steven mentioned at the start of the show, is like a lot of times folks jump right into like, I want to build my brand, or I want to go to do advertising, or I want to, put up a website. And what Brand Builders Group does a great job of, hey, what are you trying to be, right? It's like that old adage, you talk about career coaching, like what image, what are you driven by? What, based on your career and where you are in life, what are you trying to accomplish? What do you love? And so they spend a lot of time figuring that part out. And these questions, right, Jeremy, just go to the core of that. Like, because once that's done, then there's a whole bunch of steps to how do you sell that message and how to market that message. But, what do you really love? What do you want to be known for? What do you have a passion for? What problem are you trying to solve, right? That's such the foundation of anything. Because I think a lot of folks do it opposite, right? They'll put out stuff and they'll figure it out. And so I think one of the best things Brand Builders Group does is say, what are you really trying to do? And it takes some time. It's not like a 10-minute thing, right? It's like something you have to work through and really think about.
Yeah. Go ahead, Steven.
It's a question I had for you, Jeremy, and really a pleasure to have you on today.
Yeah.
But once you do like the deep soul searching, right? That's how I look at that DNA sequence. You sit back and you reflect, like, who am I as an individual?
The deep thinking. Yes. Yeah.
Some people take a lifetime to figure that out, right? They go through life and they're like, floating with the wind. But once you figure out who you are as an individual, life becomes a lot easier. So if you put in that hard work, you answer the questions. I saw one on your LinkedIn. It was like, where's my audience, right? So once I find out all that stuff, like, how do you find people that want to know Steve or know Jeremy or Andre or Jack? Like, I think that's really the step where I got lost, because I did that and then I just didn't know where to go from there.
Yeah.
About finding your audience.
Yeah. So I think that, that is really something we would tackle as we get into phase 2. It's like, okay, I have clarity on, the problem I solve, how I solve it, which is really like your offerings. Like, what do you do for people? How can they buy it from you for you to kind of engage with them and solve the problem? Who am I solving it for, which is your target audience, right? And then how do I talk about all of this stuff I'm doing, the messaging, right? So we would tackle that in phase 2. But before I answer your question, I think there are so many people that aren't crystal clear on who their target audience is.
Yeah.
And so the inputs affect the outputs, right? If you're shifting and you don't have clarity on the demographic and psychographic information around who you're selling to, then you're going to be kind of hampered from the get-go as you go out and try to find more people like that are potential buyers on the right social media platforms and so on and so forth. And so just, again, I promise I will answer your question, but there's a little bit of the backstory here. So core target audience is one of the things we tackle in phase one. And again, the question is, let me get clear on what I'm selling, right? What is the primary thing I'm selling? We see that so many people are flawed because they're trying to sell too much stuff. They're trying to sell too many people. They're trying to, they have too many ways of kind of talking about what they do. And they're ultimately spread too thin and they don't have focus. And that's another thing that our diagram, it's called Sheehan's Wall, kind of indicates. Actually, if we could pull that up real quick, I think that's a really powerful diagram. And and again, Stephen, I promise I'll get back to you here. But this is
great. This is great. Yeah, I have more questions, but keep going.
This is the groundwork, right? And another reason why we say everybody's so quick to want to like dive into the fun stuff, right? Like, let me build my website, let me do posts on social, let me, build funnels, all that, But you got to do the foundational work to kind of, be successful downstream and build a durable business and a durable brand. And so Sheehan's Wall, the name here is from Peter Sheehan. He's somebody that really studied some of the most successful businesses and said, what is different about them? Kind of why are they so successful and other businesses that were founded around the same time weren't? And the quickest way I can think to boil it down is it comes down to focus, right? They made an intentional decision to not try to do everything right out of the gate. They said, at this point in time, this is what we're great at. This is what we know we can kind of, excel in. These are the people that we know will buy this from me. And I'm going to do just that. And as I get traction and get momentum in that space, I will naturally be able to diversify out into the next thing. And then you focus and get traction in there, and then you diversify out into the next thing. And so Amazon is a great example. What did Amazon start with, and what were they known for originally? Books, as indicated by the diagram here. What do you know Amazon for now? The place you can buy anything and everything. And maybe even have a drone deliver it to your house like in minutes, right? And so I think that Amazon is a really good business example. And Peter obviously, kind of looked at other companies like that, but they had the discipline on the front end, kind of per the diagram at the top. They were unknown. Amazon at the beginning was not known to tons of people. They wanted to be known. They wanted to break through this wall and be known by more people. But if they would have come out of the gate and tried to sell everything they sell now, it wouldn't have worked, right? They would have been spread too thin, and they would have hit the wall and bounced off. It would have been a diluted message, a diluted operations team, a diluted infrastructure, all those things. And so Sheehan's Wall really emphasizes the importance of discipline and focus, and understanding that, hey, let's go ahead and plot out the bigger picture vision and these things you want to do long term, but let's back down in to get crystal clear on what I'm going to do now, and who I'm going to sell it to and how I'm going to sell it. Because if you don't have the discipline and focus, you never have the chance to diversify out into those other segments, those other markets, those other areas downstream. And so we look at personal brands. What we said is, how do we apply this to individuals? And you can see a few examples here that Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, right? He was a wrestler at first. He dominated that. He does about everything now. Ellen DeGeneres, comedian at first, everything. Oprah, same thing. Gary Vee is a good example that's not on here. He was the wine guy. Gary Vee was the wine person. He had discipline, focus, and then diversified out into all his multiple business ventures now. And so we have a lot of people that come to us and they're excited and they want to do everything, but we say, look, that's great. Let's plot out the long-term vision and long-term strategy, but you cannot be distracted by that now. Let's get clear on what is your primary business model. Who are we selling it to? And then that gives us the clarity and the focus to then take into phase two, where we start getting back into what you had said, Stephen, with how do I go find more people like this?
Yeah, and I think it's so important. Listen, I would just say somebody went through the process. I think probably everybody that's in this world, all type A's, you're in the sales world, like you have 10 interests, right? And a lot of us are like, oh, I want to pursue all 10 of them. I'm a great speaker. I'm interested in sports. I love to run. I can write. I'm a great speaker. And you can't. The purpose of the exercise is to be great at all those out of the gate is impossible, right? It's picking one or two. You're like, I'm going to be great here. I'm going to then build my platform, and then you can go do all the other things. And it is such a opposite way to think, because we think we can juggle 9 balls and really cannot. See, now that's that.
What was that?
I was just making.
That's his long-term goal, Stephen.
Right, that's it. That was my long-term. That's my long-term abs goal right there. So so we get back to Stephen. So once we have that honed and you talk about what you're trying to do, then Jeremy, going back to Stephen's question, like what are some of the mechanisms to kind of make your audience aware of what you do, or build that audience, or kind of start to share your content?
Yeah, absolutely. So once we're clear on who we're marketing, who we're selling to, right, that is the potential buyer for our primary business model, we naturally are able to transition into phase 2, where we're starting to create assets, we're starting to create content, we're starting to drive brand awareness of who we are, how we help people, the transformation we make for them. And so for social media, right, that's a pretty obvious one. Is what platforms tend to kind of have most of the buyers, right? So if you're targeting younger kids, right, like a younger demographic, then naturally you're going to be on like a TikTok, or, they're still on Instagram, a lot of them, or a Snapchat, or like those platforms that have, and I know, Jack, you're probably a daily TikToker.
I love, yep. Our team wants me on TikTok every day until Trump said we're shutting it down. So who knows? Yeah. Who knows the future of TikTok?
Yeah. But so I think there's enough data out there to kind of know what platforms tend to have the certain demographics. But again, in phase 1, you want to get clear on what's the demographic information, age, gender, kind of income, those things. But then the psychographics, what's in their head, what are they interested in, what are their buying patterns. And so obviously, if you're targeting more of a B2B or more of a professional network, like Jack, I know you guys are, LinkedIn is going to be a major platform for you to kind of go out and target more of a business type clientele. Facebook is kind of this behemoth, right? That as much as you may not like it, Facebook is just kind of this monster that is around, that most people are active on regardless. So what we say is that, if you have the right back-end system set up to kind of automate your content marketing process, where it doesn't take a lot of people a lot of time, you can have a presence on the dominant platforms that you need to have a presence on. If you're in a more professional business setting, Snapchat's probably not something you're going to care about and want to be on. TikTok is an interesting one because, until some of the latest craziness, right, that you could get a lot of really good organic reach on TikTok. And I think a lot of people were flocking to it, even if they weren't really targeting younger personnel, because you simply could, organically reach a lot of people, where you can't do that on a lot of these mature platforms. But either way, you want to pick your 3-4, kind of mainstream platforms that you just want to be pushing information out that has your likely buyers. But you still want to kind of identify which one is going to be your dominant one, right? That you're going to be putting more money into, maybe running paid ads on, managing engagement more. But so that's kind of, Stephen, kind of just some thoughts on strategy about which platforms to think about. As we think about like how to actually get people interested in you, right, which is the next natural thing, like what do I push out? We're really getting into the mix of content, right? And I think that most people, as we think about personal brands, most people think about, well, my personal social media, I just put my family or my personal stuff. I don't put any business, or on LinkedIn, I just put business stuff. I don't put any personal, right? But I think if we go back to the beginning of people do business with who they know, who they trust, who they like, somebody wants to know who you are, right? If they're truly going to get to know you and trust you, and then take that next step of potentially doing business with you, they need to understand that you're an expert in your space of professional stuff, and that's good value add content that you push out that educates them at no cost. But they also need to have kind of the personal side of you and get to understand you and your family and your interests. And so you want to think about the mix, and don't try to create a business account and a personal account. And that's just spreading you too thin at the end of the day. That's going to just divert your focus and dilute your efforts. Because what's funny, and we have this conversation a lot with people, is they're like, well, man, all my Facebook friends they're just my friends, right? They're not business people. And I said, well, yeah, there's probably a good chance that most of them are not going to do business with you. But if they knew what you did for a profession, right, there's a really good chance they may know somebody that is interested in doing business with you. And so you don't even give yourself a chance of connecting the dots and using those personal relationships to then make a business connection if you never push out business focused stuff. So there's a deeper conversation around like percentage breakdowns and how much business content versus personal, and how much direct promo content versus free content. But at the end of the day, you need to have the right mix of content that educates and entertains and shows the personal side and business side to truly build trust and grow your audience on social.
Yeah, so Jeremy, you've mentioned a couple of things. I was just making notes like at the beginning, right? So you have to know who your audience is and then not be spread too thin, going into the world saying, hey, I want to do everything. I want to be great at everything. So what would you say are maybe a common mistakes, or maybe a couple common mistakes that you see with new people that are, trying to put their brand out there kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, so I think we've hit a lot of them, but I mean, definitely is, they're trying to sell too many things to too many people, right? So, but again, I'd say it blows my mind how many people just haven't done the deep work to say, what is the main thing I'm selling, and what is the main buyer for that thing. So I would just say if there's one key takeaway, we call this our golden grid. I don't think we have a diagram for this, but this is our golden grid. That it's okay to have multiple things on the menu, right, that you're selling, right? Oftentimes there are, but you have to get crystal clear on what's my primary business model.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is the main thing I'm trying to sell. And I understand that if I sell this thing, then there's an opportunity for them to upsell into this thing or downsell into this thing. But until you get clarity on this is the primary thing I'm selling, you can't get clarity on who is the primary buyer. And then you can't go out and start doing some of these sales and marketing things that ultimately let you connect with the primary buyer and drive traffic. So I'd say that not doing the deep work, which we've kind of hit that extensively already, to get clarity on what you're selling, who you're selling to, how you sell it, like that's a key thing. And then just people, I don't know, Steven, is a good, like your question immediately was kind of like a social media question. And like, I know you have some questions around domains and stuff like that, what to do with a personal website. It's just it's so interesting how quick people want to just jump into the fun stuff. And I think, to be honest with you, it's not that it's not a flaw or anything. I just think that most people, they don't really know the value or what kind of deeper work would I do and why would I even care to do it, right? And I think that's the value in our process. It's like, look, if you do jump into this is what you're going to run into. You're going to be putting out mixed messaging, right? You're going to be trying to market to too many people. You're going to be trying to sell too many things, and you're going to get diluted results on the back end. And so I think when we kind of go through the phase one activities, people get it. And I'll tell you what is, what's probably, I mean, it's very satisfying for us working with clients, but to see them, and Jack, you can maybe speak to this, but when you do the deep work to kind of get clarity on something like what is the one word problem you solve, right? Like that's, if you ever think about that, right? It's like, oh, define the problem you solve in one word. It's like, man, I've never really thought about that. Mm-hmm. That's a huge part of our work in phase one, but there's a tremendous amount of relief for the client when they don't have all of these things going on. And it's like, man, I see it now. This is what I'm about. This is the problem I solve. This is how I solve it. This is the main thing I'm trying to sell. This is the main person I'm trying to sell it to, right? There's a tremendous amount of relief that they even experience because they're mentally not all over the place and scatterbrained, right? It's like, oh, I see it now. Okay, let me go do it. And they spent the time doing it to where it's like, it's real, right? They didn't, it's kind of like we have validation built into phase one to be like, okay, this is truly the one word problem you solve. And so yeah, Andrea, I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just not putting the time in, right? And then trying to jump out there too quick.
So true.
Yeah, one last question for you, Jeremy, because this is something that I keep hearing you say, is like you build your brand in order to sell something. But I think when I was trying to build my brand, I was just an average Joe. I just wanted to have an online presence, and I don't really have anything to offer, right?
Not true. Come on.
No. But listen, this is one of the things. Like, I just want to have like tell your story, right? That was a book I read. It's like, share your story with the world. Everybody wants to connect and work with someone, but it wasn't like I had a particular message to sell, like, I don't know, books, like you're saying, Amazon, or wine, like Gary Vee. It was just more about having a persona out there.
Yeah.
So for those people that are like early on and don't necessarily have anything to offer, they just want to put their, like, is it worth building your brand even at that stage? I think you're going to say yes, because everyone should have a brand, but it's sort of like your offer versus just being who you are. Like, that's really was the conundrum I was in.
Yeah, so it's a really great question. So I think, and you hit this earlier, but go ahead and secure your domain name if you haven't, right? Like, that's like, it's kind of like real estate, right? They're not making more land. They're not creating more .coms.
No more beachfront property, right?
Yeah, lock it down while you can, right? So whether you choose to really build out a personal brand website or not, it's good to go ahead and just buy the domain, $9.99 a year or whatever. So that's just a safety play. It's like a defensive play. When it comes to actually, like, should you build out your website, which I think is kind of your question, right? Like, if I build my website, should I kind of build this website? I'm not really selling anything on the side.
Yeah.
I think everybody has to ask this question themselves. So if your main business, right, is that you work for a company and you have some role in the company and you guys do XYZ for clients, the business related content should be pushed out on your personal social media account, right? Because again, you're the thought leader, you're the expert in this role in this company, right? So you want to have your personal social media account. But the place you're kind of driving people to kind of learn more about that business related stuff and potentially buy from you or whatever would be back to the business website, right? We're big in phase 2. We have kind of I don't think we have this diagram, but we have our relationship engine diagram. And it's really like, it's our signature framework for phase 2, which says, man, digital marketing and the internet, it's huge, right? We have funnels, we have paid traffic, we have, social media, we have all these different tactics and tips and tricks. Like, it's overwhelming. How do we simplify that down into the fundamentals, right? To kind of expand your reach, kind of convert more sales, and do it in a systematic way. That's our relationship engine diagram. And a key part of that is understanding that we don't want to build our business on rented real estate. You want to have a presence out on these different social media platforms to get in front of people. But as soon as possible, you want to drive them back to digital real estate where you control the user experience and nobody's going to change the algorithms on you or change the rules. Right. So that's where it's critical, this role of a blog, the blog being within the website and written and video based content coming out through the blog. So again, for you personally, Stephen, like, you would push your business focused content out through the business blog. The company social accounts would obviously promote that. You personally would promote that on social. Obviously, your social media accounts would have some personal stuff as well. At this point, unless you have a hobby or something, like, I mean, you could build out like your personal brand website and it be for like just your story and some personal journey stuff. But, I don't know that it's critical, right? Like, your social media accounts are establishing you as this authority in this space, right? And so people are going to understand that mix. They're going to understand that to do business with you, I go to this business website and learn more about how the business can help me. Trying to introduce more business focused personal brand website at this stage in this dynamic, right? It's like that would almost create confusion in the market for people. Like, oh, do I buy this thing from him personally on his website, or do I buy it from this company? So, you want to be strategic about it. But anytime you're starting up your own business, or you're selling a service yourself or your team, obviously that's going to be where you would build out more of your dedicated website and showcase, the promise you're making to people, the problems you're solving, how they can do business with you, all those good types of things. But you can see here, we want alignment. Alignment is critical. There's so much noise out there that if you create too many options for people, or you're like, well, do I go here to get this or go here? That little split decision, it's like, well, I'm confused and I'm off to this next thing, right? So it's really important, especially for businesses as they think about elevating and building personal brands within the business, that they're leveraging individual social media accounts out there of their individual people, so people get to know them personally. But all of those are really driving back to the corporate blog and the corporate business, because we want all of that alignment, all that traffic coming back to a single place for lead capture and nurture and trying to move people through the sales process digitally.
Good.
That's right. No, Jack, go.
Yeah, I would say for our audience, there's very little guessing in the digital marketing world today. One of the things brand builders will also do for you, you'll be like, hey, the things you put out there, how do you measure those? I know one of the things, some of the elite brands that we know, I was in one of the courses and they're like, so-and-so is never going to lose their position in the market because they know how much lead cost. They're willing to pay 30 cents more than everyone else. So every time you look for a financial planner or a motivational coach or whatever, they're implanted forever because they know all the metrics. And so there is a science to the process. So just want to encourage our audience, if you were just ad hoc throwing things out there, not a good use of time, energy, or money. And so Brand Builders is one of the Brand Builders group, one of the groups that can really help you get to the next level. And so Jeremy, can you tell folks how to reach out to the company and yourself and kind of pursue that if they're interested in kind of starting the process from their end?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you just want to go kind of learn more about the company and how we work with clients and our offerings, you can go to brandbuildersgroup.com. It's our website. I think they're running it there. Yeah, down below. And what's really cool though is, we actually offer a free brand strategy call for anybody. It's no obligation, nothing. And it's really an opportunity for us to kind of get to know you and what you're trying to do and maybe what you're struggling with and just try to help. We'll take time to try to deliver as much value as we can on that call. We'll lay out a little bit how we work with clients, but if that's not of interest, right, no big deal. We'll try to help you as much as we can on that call. So you'll actually see the URL freebrandcall.com/JW is where you can go just kind of learn a little bit about that call and schedule a free call if that's of interest as well. So
listen to our audience, go do it, right? It's free. Or if you missed that part, it's free for your chance to explore like what options you have to build your brand. All right. Amen. Jeremy, thank you so much. Appreciate your time being on the show. Cannot recommend Brand Builders Group enough. They're a phenomenal organization.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate your time.
Bye.
Listen, again, I use Brand Builders Group. It's been amazing and just helps get your stuff together. Stephen, to your point, listen, I would just say to our audience, everybody has an image or a thing they're putting out there. I would get away, sometimes we're like, hey, I'm so funny or I'm so this and kind of putting a persona out there. Literally, there's 300 million people just in the US. So I don't know if that has a lot of legs to it, but behind that, when you go for your long walk, when somebody's out there, there's a thing behind that, right? Everybody has stuff that they're putting out there. Maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's an interest, maybe it's something you have an affinity toward, maybe it's a skill set you have, maybe it's your career, but everyone has a thing that they're, their persona, and a chance to build that small, and it can change over time, but getting to know the process and the infrastructure, because there is a science to all branding. Don't please, you're just wasting your time and energy if you just go do it in an ad hoc way. In today's digital market, there's a science to the process, 100%. You don't have to walk into the restroom and just see somebody. They'll be like, oh, right? Cool. Anything you guys have to add, Steve?
It makes me want to do a lot of soul searching, I would say, from this call. Going through it, you kind of start, you can't help but think, what would my answers be to some of these questions? Yeah. So I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
That's it. So a lot of self-reflection there. It's like, what was he said? Like, answer who you're helping in one word.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, cure hunger, right? Like hunger would be like, it's one of those things. Like you can go really deep with it, and it is a tough thing to think about. I think it'll change, just as we grow and mature in life. I think that will constantly be evolving, and your brand will hopefully become something great.
Yeah. The two things, and then we'll get out of here. Two things, just going through the process. One is, again, there's a science to brand building and all the online advertising. There's no guesswork to it. Again, some of the things you see, when you see how it works behind the scenes, you're like, huh. That's why Gary Vee is so big, because there's a method. You think it's random, it's not random. And there's a method behind the money and the spending and how all that works. And then secondly, Jeremy mentioned the platforms. Listen, one of the things he mentioned, TikTok, all of the platforms, the social media platforms, if you follow them, one of the science, we talk about what happens. The reason they move to the next platform is he mentioned reach, because, to advertise on Facebook used to be, like most of us can't buy an ad on TV, right? It's thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, Super Bowl millions, right?
Yep.
You go online platform, be like, it's 10 cents. And then Facebook grows, now it's $1. Whoop, now that same ad's 10. Now it's 20. And guess what? Now TikTok started. I could go over there and advertise and go back to 10 cents. And so that's why you see, again, people feel like, MySpace is not popular anymore. You know why MySpace is not popular? Because of the spending, and the influencers move platform to platform by how much it costs to advertise. So again, there's a science behind why it's happening. It's not people feel like, it just happened, just got unpopular. No, it did not get unpopular. There's a lot of, it's like the Illuminati in the country. There's people behind the scenes driving the money. Always, 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 always follow the money, right? And that'll tell you which platform's taking off. Hence why TikTok's taking off, because people are spending money there to advertise. So let's shut it down. Amen?
Yep.
This is our last really wrap up of kind of back to school and career development. We will be back in early September. We are going to start. It's the end of the fiscal budget cycle. Ton of money.
Busy.
Spending next month. So we will start that early next month. So join us for our next show in September. We're back to how the government spends money. See you in early September. Have a great day. God bless.
See ya.